Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we will dive into a very exciting topic, the manager effectiveness gap, why engagement falls short, and how HR can equip its managers to drive retention, performance, and business impact. This session is eligible for HRCI, SHRM, and ATD professional credits. And before I dive into today's content, let me tell you about Brandon Hall Group, starting with myself. My name is Dr. Marline C. Duroseau. I am Managing Director of HR and Leadership Development here at Brandon Hall Group. Brandon Hall has some incredible opportunities that could indeed accelerate your career. Brandon Hall Group is a leading research and analyst firm dedicated to advancing human capital excellence. And our vision is a world where every HR organization drives business performance through human capital excellence. For more than 30 years, Brandon Hall Group has provided CHROs, CLOs, and workforce leaders with the intelligence, insight, advisory, and community they need to make better human capital decisions and improve those business outcomes. Our independent research, strategic advisory, excellence councils, professional development programs, and globally recognized HCM Excellence Awards all help organizations strengthen capability, reduce execution risk, and accelerate workforce transformation. Trusted by more than 10,000 organizations worldwide, Brandon Hall Group serves corporate organizations and human capital management solution providers across learning and development, leadership development, talent management, talent acquisition, inclusion, and human resources, AI, and the future of work. As a reminder, there's still time to submit for the Excellence in Technology and Excellence in Education Technology Awards with the deadline of September 4th, and Excellence in Action isn't due until September 25th. The Brandon Hall Group Eminence Program brings together intelligence, guidance, and executive collaboration that leaders need to navigate today's workforce challenges and prepare for what's next. We also have incredible learning and networking opportunities. Our two BRIC events happening this year, our AI Summit on October 15th and our Leadership Summit on November 11th and 12th. And don't forget to save the date for next year's 2027 HCM Excellence Conference happening January 26th through the 28th. All details for everything I've mentioned will be available in a PDF that you'll receive within 24 hours after this webinar. And based on everything I just went over, which one would you like to learn more about? Is it our Eminence Program, our Awards Program, the 2027 HCM Excellence Conference, or the BRIC Summit? Thank you so much for that. Definitely let us know. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the questions panel on your control bar. We'll be answering them throughout the session. We're also recording today's webinar, and you'll receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the recording and a PDF of all the slides. The chat box is open, so feel free to share your thoughts as we go along. Your input makes this more valuable for everyone. And finally, at the end of today's webinar, we will be selecting one lucky raffle winner to receive $200 off an Excellence in Action program submission or $100 off the Institute. Stay tuned to see if you're the lucky winner. You must be present to win. All right, so why is this conversation important? Thank you so much again. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you all today. And we are talking about the manager effectiveness gap and why engagement efforts fall short. And I want to begin by grounding us in why this conversation matters right now. Of course, managers are carrying more pressure than ever. We all know that. We're expected to execute strategy, to retain talent, support employee well-being, communicate about those constant changes, reinforce the culture, coach performance, and all while keeping teams engaged. And oftentimes, managers are managing their own workload pressure. And that's a lot to carry. I think everyone here would agree. And what we know is that engagement, retention, performance, and culture often rise or fall at the manager level. This is something that we see a lot. Organizations may design engagement strategies centrally, and HR may launch the surveys, the recognition programs, those learning initiatives, the well-being resources, but employees usually experience those strategies through their direct manager. So when employees ask themselves, do I feel supported here? That answer is normally shaped by what their manager does or doesn't do. So when they ask, do I see a future here? Again, their manager often shapes that answer. And when the employees ask, do I trust this organization during change? Again, the manager is often the messenger, right? So that is why this topic matters. The problem is not that engagement doesn't matter. The problem is that engagement strategies often depend on managers who are either under-equipped to deliver them consistently and not getting all of the support that they may need in order to help their own staff. So today, we're not here to blame any managers. We're here to examine the system around managers and what HR leaders can do to better equip them. That was a lot. And this is a good slide because it has all that important content that I've curated on why this conversation matters. Then this slide clearly captures the disconnect very, very clearly. Okay, so we're looking on one side. Okay, so on one side, organizations, they launch these important engagement efforts because on paper, all of this stuff is needed. All of this stuff looks good. They conduct engagement surveys. Okay, they invest in recognition programs. Organizations create those career development initiatives. They offer learning programs, well-being resources, and culture campaigns. And of course, all of these are investments that are very meaningful to the success of an organization. But then on the other side, the managers, right, are who are expected to bring those investments to life. So the managers are expected to interpret, right, those engagement surveys that the organization launches. The managers are expected to interpret that feedback. Then they have to coach the employees, recognize the individual contributions, support their employees' career growth, manage workload, and manage burnout, because we all know managing burnout in itself is an entire job. They have to communicate the change and maintain the trust and psychological safety of their team. And all of this, to be honest, is just a tremendous amount of responsibility. And we sometimes underestimate how much translation work managers are being asked to do. I was having a conversation earlier this week with a client, and one of the things we talked about was not only is it important to ensure people, whether it's your team, your clients, your customers, that you're going to do something. So ensuring it is one thing, having it on a checklist is one thing, but how are we going to execute? How are we going to fulfill that? Right. And that is what sometimes we underestimate, the amount of translation work that the managers have to do to actually be able to do all of this work that's being required. So the organization may say, we have a recognition strategy, but the employee experiences recognition through whether or not their manager notices and acknowledges their contribution, not the organization. So you see how that differs there? The organization may say, we care about career development, but the employee, their experience with career development is through whether their manager has those meaningful conversations around growth, right, and succession. Organization may also say, okay, we are committed to well-being, but the employee experiences that through whether their manager respects their boundaries, whether their manager notices if they're being overloaded, and whether their manager even helps them prioritize the work. So all of that to say, the key line here is important. Engagement is designed centrally, but experienced locally, okay? That means that HR cannot only just design, okay, HR programs, they must also design the conditions that help the managers make these programs real. Okay, next one. Okay, so now we have our second polling question here. How would you describe your organization's manager effectiveness maturity today? Do you think it's reactive? Right? Managers are expected to handle engagement and performance issues with little formal support. Is it operational? Managers receive basic tools or training, but the support is inconsistent across various teams. Is it strategic, where manager capability is intentionally developed and tied to engagement, retention, and performance goals? Or, of course, optimized, where manager effectiveness is measured, coached, and continuously improved using that data that's collected and predictive insights? Definitely excited to see what you think here. And of course, there's no wrong answer. Okay, this is just simply identifying where your organization is today. So thank you so much for answering. It looks like our overwhelming answer here is operational, right? So at that operational level, tools and trainings may exist, but they are inconsistent across the teams. So that progression matters because organizations that get this right, they aren't necessarily leaving manager effectiveness to chance. They're building systems, right? Effective systems around it. Okay. All right. Manager effectiveness often breaks down because managers are responsible and accountable for outcomes that they are not fully equipped to influence. Now, think about that. Manager effectiveness often breaks down because managers are accountable for outcomes, right? Remember that left side of the screen that we had, what organizations want? These are the outcomes that they want. But that right-hand side, they may not be fully equipped to influence those outcomes. So let's look at the list that I have here on this slide, right? You have some where there are too many direct reports, limited coaching capability, weak feedback skills, low confidence, and difficult conversations. Now, that's a big one because there's so many changes happening and so many dynamics that we have to navigate in the workforce that involves a lot of different conversations. And is the manager equipped to handle those difficult conversations? Inconsistent recognition habits, limited time for development conversations, poor visibility into team engagement signals, lack of tools to act on those survey results. So any one of these challenges can affect how effective a manager is in their role. But when you have a multitude of them happening at once, managers themselves become overloaded, okay? So that is why it's extremely important to make sure that we're able to identify what these particular things look like so that we can get the managers the help that they need. Managers may want to coach better, but they don't have time. They may want to develop their employees, but they don't have clear tools. They may want to act on those engagement survey results, but they don't know what actions or which ones will matter the most. So a better question at this point is, has the organization designed the conditions needed for their managers to lead well? And this is where HR has a tremendous opportunity. Next slide, please. All right. We're already here. Is that the right one? We're already at poll today? Okay, so poll question number 3. What is the biggest barrier to manager effectiveness in your organization today? So let's pause here. Quick pause for another poll. Okay, is it time? Is it tools and resources, coaching and feedback skills, change overload, or lack of measurement? Which one you think is the biggest barrier to manager effectiveness in your organization today? Very, very interested to hear your thoughts on this. Okay, managers are overloaded. Okay, so if they're overloaded by change, they may become reactive rather than intentional. That is a big deal, yes, because at that point, if you have overload because 10,000 things are important, 10,000 things are happening with change, then at that point, it just becomes, let's make sure that I get this done. But how effective am I in getting it done? How intentional am I in making sure that it's done correctly and the value add is actually translating with the things that I'm getting done? And this is why manager effectiveness, it just can't be solved by training alone. Training may be part of the answer, but it's not the whole answer. A good one. Thank you for that. Thank you for your responses on that. Okay. So what high performing organizations do differently? So high performance organizations, they don't leave manager effectiveness to chance. They build systems around their managers. Okay. It's not the system is there and the manager has to conform. It's the system is built around what the manager needs and what will help the manager succeed. So they equip managers with practical tools. They reinforce coaching and feedback behaviors. You know, high performing organizations connect managers to those retention goals that they're looking for. They provide data that managers can indeed act on, because why collect data if you just have it, but then, okay, it's good to have. How can I then operationalize that data? How do I operationalize it? Maybe I have to make some changes. Maybe I have to implement more processes or accountability. And it's important to be able to act on the data that the managers are provided with, okay? High-performing organizations create accountability for people leadership, okay? And they also support their managers with HR, analytics, leadership development resources. And this last point here is extremely important. Managers should not be expected to solve engagement, retention, performance challenges all by themselves. They can't do it alone. They need the support of HR. They need the support of the organization via analytics support. The managers themselves need leadership development, which is why leadership development is extremely important to me, because you will find where sometimes, not on purpose, some managers are, in a sense, set up to fail because they may have been excelling at their job when they were the employee, the person responsible for their work. And the minute they, then occupy a managerial role, which sometimes boosts their confidence because it means someone recognized that in them and that they got the promotion. But then once they get there, they're not equipped to actually manage, because it's a different skill level than when you were just the employee doing your work. So managers definitely need that leadership development so that they can succeed in their role as well. And another thing is that managers must have their clear expectation and tools that are actually usable that they can use. Okay, so managers are the multiplier, like we see here at the bottom of the screen. When they are well equipped, every people initiative has a better chance of becoming real in the workplace, right? That's the difference between stating what you want to do, stating what you stand for, and actually figuring out a way to be it, to live it, to do it, right? I want to say something, but I want to do something, right? Which one weighs more? Which one is the better value add? Okay. So, we can think about that for a little bit. You may have a culture initiative that becomes more real when managers translate those values into the daily behaviors that they can execute with their team. And you might have a well-being strategy, but it becomes more credible when the managers model those healthy boundaries, okay? You may have where there's a learning program that's initiated, and the manager will become more effective if they're able to reinforce that on the job itself. So again, managers are the multipliers because they are the closest to the employee experience. And this slide here helps shift from manager activity to manager impact. Okay, we're moving beyond even just measuring activity, checking activity off of a box, making sure we fill all of the holes, to what kind of impact are we seeing? Are we even making an impact? And the goal here is not simply to make managers busier. Managers are already busy. I know a lot of us can relate to that. We all have 10,000 things to do. The goal is to make the manager actions more intentional, make it more measurable, and make it more connected to the actual outcomes of the business, right? So for example, you're holding a one-on-one is an activity. Yes. Was I able to have my team meeting or my one-on-one meeting? Yes. Check. Done. But the impact is earlier risk detection and stronger trust. Okay. Giving feedback. Yes. Check mark. I did it. I provided feedback for XYZ. So giving the feedback is an activity, but the impact is faster performance and improvement based on that feedback, right? Recognizing employees is an activity, but their impact is reinforced behaviors and retention support. So yes, I recognize them, but what was the impact of that? They decided to stay. or they aren't looking for another job, right, anytime soon. So again, coaching development, number 4, coaching development is an activity, but the impact is greater internal mobility and capability growth, right? There's only so much an employee can do when it comes to trying to showcase what they're good at, to show their managers what they can do. So once they get coached and they're giving the opportunity by having that internal mobility, by being able to grow in the company, that helps reinforce what it is that the coaching provided. And it also helps the employee themselves build that confidence, which then helps with their well-being. So no matter what, everything comes back full circle, right? So supporting workload balance, it's an activity, but the impact is reduced burnout and productivity loss. So you see how everything is, okay, yes, we have where we can do the work, but what is the impact that's translating from the act of doing the work, right? Communicating change, our final one here on the slide. Yes, it's an activity. I told them, I let them know what's going on, right? But the impact is faster adoption, lower resistance, the trust that the manager is going to help them through that particular change. So all of this is a critical shift for HR leaders. And if we only measure whether or not managers are doing activities, then we miss whether those activities are actually creating value. So HR's role in this is to help define what manager effectiveness actually looks like and doing it in practice, connecting manager behaviors to outcomes, and giving managers the tools that make those behaviors easier to sustain. And next up, we have, I think, our final poll question, confidence and manager measurement. How confident are you that your organization can measure manager effectiveness in a way that connects to the business outcomes? Very interested to hear that. And this I think is one of the most important questions in today, because if we can't clearly define manager effectiveness, then we can't consistently develop it, right? And if we can't measure it, we can't prove its impact. So, this doesn't mean that every manager behavior needs to be reduced to a spreadsheet, but it does mean that organizations, need a clearer line of sight between manager capability and business outcomes. Oh, you see what we have here? Not very confident. We rely mostly on engagement scores or informal feedback, right? So it just really goes to show that the clearer we are about having these type of outcomes, the stronger the business case becomes. So this is very, very interesting data. Thank you so much for your responses here. All right. So what should HR leaders do now? So this particular slide outlines five practical moves that HR leaders can take now. First, we want to define what effective management means. And this is very important because every organization, although as a collective, we're looking to, optimize business outcomes, increase customer satisfaction, make sure we have retention, whether it's in client-based employees, all the things. But you want to move beyond generic leadership language and just clarify what is it that needs to be done. What does effectiveness look like, right? Because all of us have this goal, but what may be important to one may not necessarily be as a priority to another, right? So we have to be able to define that. What does it look like in your organization? Is management effectiveness through coaching? Is it feedback? Is it recognition, career development, workload management, the communication of change, psychological safety, which we talked about a few times? The second thing is to reduce the complexity for managers, because we talked about this before. No matter what, managers are always busy. And sometimes managers are expected to just figure this out when they're given an initiative or given something that needs to be done. So we don't need to give managers more overwhelming frameworks, right? They need simple, usable tools that they can apply in the flow of work, right? Meaning conversation guides, coaching prompts, dashboards. Third, connect manager capability to those business outcomes. So once we define, what manager effectiveness looks like, how do we now say, okay, let's measure it, right? Tie it to retention. What's the productivity change, the performance, engagement, So this is how HR helps executives understand why manager enablement matters. The fourth one is to equip managers in the flow of work, because oftentimes managers are not necessarily looking for, and I'm laughing because I'm going to say, we're not looking for another training, because there's always a training. There's always something we can learn, which is all important. But we need support sometimes at that moment of need. Okay, so what you want to look at it is that Your training is like that umbrella, but then now you have those different prongs that you say, okay, from the training, today I need this, tomorrow I need this, for this goal, I need that. So you want to make sure you look at it as being supportive in the moment of need, right? Some just-in-time resources, coaching guides, prompts, things of that nature. And finally, fifth, measure the manager experience as well. What does the manager think about all of this, right? This is often overlooked. And managers can't consistently create great employee experiences if their own role, what they're responsible for, is also overloaded or unsupported. So the quote at the bottom is important. Okay, very, very important. HR cannot expect managers to simplify, right, the employee experience if HR makes the manager experience too complex. Okay, and one thing I want to throw in here is, how many times have you guys heard, oh no, I don't, you know someone who's really well, they're good at their job, you think that they would be promoted, they would do well, but then they often tell you, I don't want all of the complexities that come with being a manager. I'm just fine where I am in my role. And that's hard, right? Because you see the capability, and you see, the potential in the person, but because of all of the stigma that's surrounded around that managerial role, sometimes some people don't go for it, right? And organizations lose out on great productivity and great retention because of that. So if we want managers to be effective, we have to design manager enablement with the same care that we apply to the employee experience. Okay. And this is where Brandon Hall comes in, where Brandon Hall Group can help organizations make the shift from manager expectation to manager enablement. Okay, because many organizations already know, managers matter. We know that. The challenge is that they don't have they have not yet fully defined what manager effectiveness looks like, how it should be measured, or how it should connect to business outcomes. And Brandon Hall Group helps organizations identify where manager effectiveness breaks down, build practical systems of support, and connect those manager capability to measurable business outcomes. So for organizations where the managers are accountable but under-equipped, we can help develop a manager capability framework. And that's number one. And you'll see the multiple ways that we can help, from the challenge on the left and what the Brandon Hall Group advisory support would do on the right. So, it's really, really important to know that, Brandon Hall Group doesn't just help organizations understand, what is happening in the market. We help organizations to translate that insight into action, and action into measurable business impact. And that's really, really important, okay, when it comes to manager effectiveness, because it's not a single program issue. It's a system issue, which goes back to what we mentioned on our first slide, right? And the system issue requires clear frameworks, strong data, practical tools, and executive alignment. And as we close today, I, would want to leave you with a few takeaways. First, engagement is experienced locally through the manager. So yes, the company has an engagement program, but the manager is who is going to determine if the employee that you're implementing this engagement program for actually feels the engagement or feels the benefit of that, right? Second, manager effectiveness is a business performance issue, okay? Third, under-supported managers create hidden costs. And we can talk, I can do a whole webinar on hidden costs. As a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna do it, okay? Four, and it's those hidden costs that creep up on you, right? And cost you definitely a lot. Fourth, high-performing organizations build systems around managers and not just expectations for them. And fifth, HR's opportunity is to move the manager from training, right, to manager enablement. And having that distinction matters, because training alone can build the knowledge, like we talked about, that's that umbrella, right? But enablement helps managers apply that knowledge consistently in the flow of work, right? So training is up here, how we apply it. What did we learn? Today, I'm going to use this. Tomorrow, I'm going to use that. For this project, I'm going to use this, right? So the future of engagement would not be won by, better slogans or more surveys. It's only going to be won by organizations that really equip their managers to turn people strategy into daily behavior, team trust, and measurable business impact. And that is where Brandon Hall Group continues to help organizations move from insight to action, and from workforce activity, remember all those activities that we're checking off, to workforce impact, okay? So that was a lot, right? So thank you so much for joining today's session. And, I really appreciated your time and your engagement and the work that you all are doing to strengthen your managers, teams, and your organizations. And I'd like to say we do have our raffle winner. Our raffle winner for today is Tiffany Dantzler. Yes, Tiffany Dantzler. And stay tuned. We'll be sending more information to you as well. All right. So I don't know if we had any questions. I know we're out of time. I don't want to keep you. I want to be respectful of our time. We're exactly 30 past the hour. So if any questions came in that we weren't able to answer during the actual live webinar, I will reach out specifically and we will send it out as part of that and respond to the question accordingly. All right. So thank you for joining today's session. And I appreciate, again, your time and the work that you're doing to help strengthen your managers, your teams, your organizations, and things of that nature. And thank you for spending part of your day with us. And we look forward to continuing the conversation.